Ian Schiller, International Consultant, internationalconsultantbureau.com. Get there by clicking on ianschiller.com. Click at the top to the International Consultant Bureau, and when you're there, you could order web services, reserve time with the International Consultant, and also listen to the Web Basics podcasts. This is Web Basic Podcast number 7, and we're talking about how you work with a developer. Now, last time we talked about how you work with the designer. It is similar. When you work with a developer, there is a major difference, though, because by the time you've reached the developer, and sometimes this developer person, which is also called front-end sometimes, a front-end developer, it's also called a web author. This is the person that's taking the designs that your designer did, and they are making them code. They're making them so that it'll basically be a website and be interactive when the site is published to the web. So by this time, if your design is done, typically you're okay with your images, you're okay with your logo, you're okay with the placement of everything. You like how the site looks, and you're ready to have it turned into a website. So most of the time what will happen is the coder or this web developer or the author will take this stuff and turn it into HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever it takes to code the functionality and the design and the look of your site into a website. So when you hand over the designs to them and they get the designs, they're pretty much going to give you a time frame and say, hey, I need this amount of time to code this thing. I'm going to test it, and they're going to test it in the browsers and the devices that you want to see it on, and then they're going to publish it with your approval. Very important that you get them, that communication is there, because you don't want them publishing anything too soon, of course, because you're going to probably have a huge web release party, and you want to make sure you do that on time. But more importantly, you just want to have good communication. It's not uncommon for you to drop a line to the developer maybe a week in to your project, or a few days in, and say, hey, how's everything going? Do you need anything else from me, etc., etc. More often than not, coders just like to code. And you sometimes will provide the coder with updated text information if you're writing more copy for the website or you're getting an update. What you don't want to really give the developer is just additional graphics or graphics that they might not have seen. I mean, it'd be okay to contact them and say, hey, I've got this thing, and I want to put this here. If you start talking about design stuff to the developer guy, they're probably going to get confused and say, hey, I'm coding what we agreed on that I would code. So if you're giving me more design, that means you should probably go talk to the design guy. He should rework that and get me what you want to see on the web. So the point is, it's very much like an animation process, or the ideal animation process, where by the time the pictures are drawn and they're taking them to camera, you don't want to be redoing anything. Stuff is kind of got to be locked in. So again, the author, the coder, the front-end developer for your website, by the time they get the design files and your design is done, they're just going to code, and then they're going to test. They're going to probably send you links to your test so you could demo your website. And when you like it and when it's working and you see it working, you say, okay, let's publish this thing, and then they're going to publish it. That's pretty much all you have to know now about coding and authoring. Now, there is another something to mention. If you're dealing with like an e-commerce thing, or you're dealing with a database site, such as something bigger like a MySpace or a Facebook or something social networky, where you have people entering in data that's stored in a database, you're going to go through a much longer develop and coding time than you would if you did not have that. And that's because there are several items that get programmed into a database that just having that extra functionality there increases the time in which you're going to work with these people. Now, developers are a little trickier to suss out as far as who's good and who's bad, and you really got to go by reputation. Get a ton of references. It is so common in this industry for people to start web projects and just abandon them. And it's unfortunate, but it's very common where you'll get someone to start coding the website. When it comes to changes or additional functionality, they will just bail on you. So make sure you have good communication with them. Make sure you're in the initial comments, you're getting the comments and the feedback that you want. and more specifically, to get into the code portion about it, make sure they're coding with something that's going to work for you. Now, sometimes you might not know what that is. And a lot of times people don't, because there's so many different languages to code with. Essentially, every website is composed of HTML for the structural component, the basic structure of the pages, and then it's styled, meaning the colors are added, fonts, and compositionally is then added with CSS, which are cascading style sheets. And then on top of that, for additional functionality, some fades, if you put different fades or have moving elements to the site, it's now done with JavaScript. A lot of people have moved away from Flash because it's not playing now across all devices. And typically when you're working with a coder that knows what they're doing, or a front-end developer, they are going to code clean code. So I just realized I should be putting up an example of messy code, an example of clean code, and I'll put that up on my site so you can see what the difference is. You want clean code. You want the cleanest code possible. And you want something called semantic HTML. And you want code that is not bulky. The slicker and slimmer the code is, and simpler the code is, the better you're going to rank in the search engines, because that's just how it works. So, again, you've got to really vet the people you're going to be working with, and even going back to what we talked about last time with the designer, you want to make sure they're designing pages that are going to fit within all these different devices, should you want your site to work on all the different devices. And you get the only way to make sure that's happening is to look at their past work, and if they have any live URLs, etc., etc. And because the web changes so fast, sometimes designers' work and front-end developers' work, programmers' work, it will be out of date by the time you're seeing it, because it changes so rapidly. So again, really try to do your homework with the people you're working with. So to recap, with developers, same as designers, try to get all the preliminary questions you have out of the way up front. Know that they're going to work on code exclusively, most likely, unless they say otherwise. Any design changes would probably have to be handled back at the designer, so you want to make sure your site is ready to go. Text is very easy for developers and front-end people, code authors, to change, so that's usually fair game. And you want to make sure they're coding clean at the highest, most up-to-date standards, which is now HTML, I would say 4.9, 5.0. Most coders that are coding practically cannot code in exclusively HTML5, because it does not play across all browsers, even though Internet Explorer is only being used mostly in China now. I think it's 60%. It's down to 1% in the States. If you have an international thing going and you want people from China to see your site, you still need to go back a ways as far as browsers. If you're doing something new that's very progressive, you could definitely use HTML5. And you want to ask for You could ask for code examples. It is not good practice to ask someone to code you a project so you could see what they do, but code examples are fair game. And again, ask them for their website, and you could view source and look at their code. Again, I will put examples up with this podcast on good code, bad code, and hopefully that'll at least tip you guys off and give you some insight into what these coders are doing and how you can expect to work with them. Until then, I want to thank my sponsor, Luprint.com. For all your printing needs, go to Luprint.com. You could order most basic print items right there on the website. They ship in the continental U.S., both coasts, and of course in the Midwest, all around. And Luprint.com, we thank them very much for being in business for over 30 years. Extremely reliable. That's Luprint.com for all your printing needs. If you have any questions, just go to their website, Luprint.com, LEWPRINT.com. Give them a call. Say hi to Lewis, hi to Peggy. Let them know the international consultant tipped you off. Next week, we are going to talk about testing, and we're going to talk about different browsers and different devices and all the different ways that people can view your website and web work. It's very complicated. There's a plethora of decisions to be made before you get involved with the web, but hopefully you're learning something and you're getting involved and getting out there and building the best possible website you could build for yourself at this particular time, and business is picking up because of it. I will talk to you soon. Ian Scheller, the International Consultant Bureau, IanScheller.com. Talk to you soon.